All right. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Voice of the Microsoft Partner. My name is Sherman Crancer. I'm the CEO of the Crancer Group. And just want to say thanks so much, guys, for coming back. I've been off the last two bumps, but luckily I've had a great team here. I've gotten some really great feedback, from a lot of folks on my team talking about, I think the last one we were talking about incentives and co-op and a bunch of different things that are really applicable to the group. So want to say thanks and thanks for allowing me to take a little bit of a break. We've been doing this for 5 years now. It's crazy. And while we've seen a little bit of a less attendance on the actual, in this Teams meeting, which is unfortunate, we actually see a much higher after the fact. I think just things have changed, right, in our industry a little bit. So we're still getting about 600 views, full hour views of this session. So looks like there are things that are going right. But, for those who are actually attending today, just, a sincere thank you, and thank you for, coming here and thank you for listening. We really do appreciate it, and whatnot. So a couple things, so we have some polls, we're going to be using some polls today. So please go ahead and vote on the polls. Kind of helps us kind of set up, some of these things. That we're talking about, some of the concepts. So go ahead and we don't publish who says what. So go ahead and answer as honestly as possible. Second thing is, it's an open forum, to ask questions. Please go ahead and raise your hand. We have a, lighter crew here today, so it's totally fine. We're going to be going through this. And, no question is a bad question. Any question you go ahead and do. Now, we're going to try to do the stump Dave. He told me not to do this, but, if you want to, go ahead and try to stump Dave. Not on necessarily AI topics, okay? But if you have a partner center question, now this is going to be kind of cool. This will be kind of fun. If you got a partner center question about something that's hamstringing you in partner center that you're just like, oh my gosh, I'm about to pull out my hair, go ahead and put it in the chat window. That is really our specialty, from different things. So, today, we're going to be talking about, I think let's go ahead and go to the agenda. Let's go ahead and we'll fast forward that here. FY26 strategy around AI agents and building an offer. Then we're going to get into strategy plus case studies. And then I'm going to go into the summary. So for the summary, and then we'll kind of wrap this all up. But, what I was kind of thinking earlier today a little bit about, the voice of the Microsoft partner, right? We're kind of thinking about, what do we do? Why do people even come? Sometimes you start getting imposter syndrome. Like, why does anybody want to even listen to me? You start thinking, what do I know? And interestingly enough, when I came to the conclusion, and I think what we're very good at is translating stuff that comes from Microsoft to allow our partners to maybe better conceptualize, right? Some of the things, some of the ideas that are coming out to, as we all talk about, Microsoft has 1,000 programs, right? And they're constantly bombarding you with X, Y, Z, P, D, Q. And if you're on those July announcement windows, remember those 4-hour, this is our new strategy. I think a lot of us, probably sit there and we're totally intent and totally ready to understand this for the first like 18 minutes of what they're showing. And then the eyes just glaze because I remember this when I was at Microsoft, they would say, hey, you got an hour presentation. Hey, here you go. Can you do this presentation? I would say, yeah, no problem. And I'd open it up and it'd be 122 slides. And you're like, how the heck you want me to cover 122 slides? And we all know this, right? We all can probably clap our hands here, right? There's like 122 slides to listen to. It's just a thing. So I think that's one of the things that is really good about what we do is it's really about just kind of translating. So hopefully today we're going to be talking about AI agents, right? We're going to talk about that. We're going to try to build the concepts and understanding of it. And hopefully by the end of today, you will leave with a better understanding of why this is important, why you might want to do this. And frankly, it's not as hard as you might think it's going to be. So that'll be interesting to say. So, all right, so let's go ahead and go into the AI adoption curve. All right, so we're going to get started. No, actually, I think, no, before we do that, we're going to have a starting poll right now. Let's go ahead and get our first poll out there. I'm just curious here. This will be a good starter for us. Are you currently using any AI agents or co-pilots in your solutions or services? Go ahead and click on that. Yes, we do. No, what's an agent? Duh. I'd rather stick my head in the sand. Now, I think a lot of you would do that one. I'm going to go ahead and put the stick my head in the sand because a lot of us are like, what's going on? But I think today we can take our head out of the sand. But hey, it looks good here. It looks like 7, okay, 8. So it's about 70% of the vote say they are. And I would imagine that you guys are using Copilot in one way, shape, or form, or you are talking to your clients about it. But I think what's changed going from FY25 to FY26 is FY25 was all about Copilot, 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 Copilot. Hey, let's put in Copilot. Let's go ahead and miss the mark and think that everyone's going to take Copilot. When then we realize that, hey, you got 100 employees, you're really only selling 20 Copilot licenses, not necessarily 100 Copilot licenses. And I think that was a big kind of mistake, right? That maybe some people kind of thought about. But it's all about Copilot. But now, really, the new thing is agents, right? And I think if you think back to it, the way that I conceptualize it at least is, you remember the chatbot? Chatbot was before Copilot. Chatbot, right? Chatbot, right? Remember that? And hey, let's go ahead and do a Q&A thing. And we actually did one. We did a chatbot, and I named him Cortez. And I'm going to just give you a little bit of background. About 4 years ago, we were tasked with monitoring and being the Q&A company for all of Azure. There was these Azure events where it was, getting your AZ900, right? These 4-hour, they were semi-live. And there's like 1,300 virtual VTDs. That's right. Virtual training days. That's what we had to do. Right. Well, there's like 1,500 people on each one of these sessions. And there's no way my team could answer all the questions that quickly. So what I did is I was like, and this was, 3-4 years ago. What I did is I grabbed every potential question. We created this knowledge base, this very simple knowledge base. That wasn't simple because we ended up finding about 5,000 basic questions and answers. Very simple. Questions and answers, Q&A, 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 right? I didn't train the model because I just really kind of needed a static type of event. But what we did is, because we needed to be able to answer questions faster, quicker, better, is we integrated that into the virtual training desktop system, where when the questions would come in, the ones that we couldn't field, we'd take those and put them into our chatbot called Cortez, and it would actually start providing some, really great answers. Now, some of the answers, because it was static, wasn't great, but then we started to actually train the model a little bit towards the end of it. We didn't really finish it too much. And then it started coming back with actually some really cool answers. Okay, so I'm just kind of thinking, like, and the reason why I'm talking about this is that was like in the very rudimentary stage, right? And that's really the kind of the basis of what I want you guys to kind of start thinking about when it comes to an agent, right? An agent. The chatbot was kind of a good one. You see a lot on so many different, websites today. There's a lot of chatbots out there, but they're dumb bots, right? Because they only know if you ask that specific question, are you going to get that specific answer, right? Are you? Yeah, so yes, no, or maybe a small variation of it, but they're not training the model. Okay, where Microsoft is now actually taking that arduous process when you had to do it manually, and you had to, oh my gosh, you had to do so many different connections and Power Platform to really actually make it work. Now Microsoft is actually taking a lot of that out from you. So if we think of it in that terms, and we think of it, okay, now we can start thinking about what's called the AI adoption curve. So, as a majority of MSPs, okay, and I would say even ISVs, but if you're a Dynamics partner, you're a managed services provider, the way that we think about things typically is we're thinking about infrastructure migration. We're thinking about monitoring the networks. We're thinking about being, all things service IT related, right, to our end customers, right? That's what we do. We've been doing that for a long time. Then AI comes out and all this model come out and you're like, holy Moses, how does this fit in with what I do, right? Because now an agent, wait a minute, we don't do that. We are a managed services company. Right. Well, I hate to break the news to you, but if I can, in my prognostication hat, okay, things are getting more automated and more automated and more automated. I hope you're seeing that trend, right? And now with AI, this is the new trend. So we have to actually sit back and think, okay, how are we going to go ahead and start changing what we do, our company? I know this may seem a little bit like a way out of whack, but I think your business is going to go from MSP model at 90-10 right now to an MSP in 5 years. I think your MSP model is going from a 10 to 90. I think it's going to be a completely inverse relationship. And it's all going to be about AI and how is AI actually doing a lot of the work that you're doing. So, okay, if we understand that, we have to think a little bit differently. Okay, so when you're thinking about the AI adoption curve, and I'll get into this in a second, but I want us to start with foundational concepts first. We have to, this is a concept that many people have talked to you about before, but if you're going to think about doing an agent, the first thing we have to start thinking about is verticals and vertical marketing. Okay, or the way that we used to think in vertical marketing, right? You've heard me say over the past 5 years, you should set yourself up for becoming a vertical marketing, company. You should find the problem, right, that you have to solve, and do that over and over again, and become the 500-pound gorilla inside of that particular vertical. That's how you build and take over base. That's how you become a baby oracle where they can't take you out because you're so important to them, right? So when we're thinking about agents, that's the same thing. I think what we have to do is think about verticals. Why? Because vertical thinking is going to help you create an agent the quickest, fastest way possible and give you the best ability to penetrate the market. Right now, there's so many AI and AI different concepts and thoughts and ideas, right? That you're like, well, how do I focus? So today we're about to talk about focus. How are we going to actually create something and to be able to deliver it? Okay, that's what we want to figure out. Okay, so there's this thing called the AI adoption curve that Microsoft has coined. Okay, but it actually makes a lot of sense. So the first thing we have to think about is leaders need to decide how are they going to provide cutting edge AI options to all of their employees, number one, and then number two, to all of their customers. Because right now, we all know that putting Copilot licensing on every Office 365 license, what does that do? It doubles the cost. How many companies are raising their hand saying, hey, yeah, please double my monthly subscription, please. I need to pay Microsoft more money, right? So now with agents, that's a different story, right? We're thinking a little bit differently. Maybe we're not providing a Copilot license to each person, but we're thinking about maybe providing an agent, someone who's going to help them out, right? So the leaders are trying to figure out how do they provide access. And if we understand that, now we're like, okay, maybe we have a different thing. Maybe we're not trying to sell them Copilot across the board. Okay, we're going to sell them something a little bit different. Okay, that's going to help them holistically. Right. The next thing we need to figure out, too, is what is the ROI, right? If we can help them redesign business processes and realize the value of AI. Now, there are so many examples, and we're going to go into a lot of them today. We've got a bunch of case studies and different things we're going to talk about. But ROI is really big here because, the way that you talk, this is how I think about things, right? If you're going to sell something to someone, you're going to sell something to a business, you got to figure out what is the problem, how are you going to solve it, and then, okay, what are your reasoning behind it, right? Is it going to help them reduce costs? Is it going to help them, increase visibility? Is it going to help them with efficiency? What is that going to do to their ROI, right? So we have to start thinking, okay, as well as the leaders, or help them understand how AI or building out agents is going to help them realize better profitability. You want to go into those meetings with hey, yeah, we can talk about the technical stuff, but let's talk about your problems first and how is that affecting your bottom line, right? What is your utilization rate? What are the processes that are just causing you so many problems, right? Maybe we can figure this out. And that's a lot to do with Power BI, right? Or not Power BI, but Power Automate, right? That was kind of the beginner of that, right? And then the next thing we have to also think about is governance, right? Is trying to figure out, and that's why we kicked out Mr. Fireflies today. We kicked out Mr. or Mrs. somebody else today because that's public domain. The governance behind my IP and my content, I don't want just floating out there. I don't want other organizations to be able to use what we're kind of talking about, right? So we have to think about governance. How do we ring fence certain things and put them in little pools, data pools, that we can then access and utilize to our benefit, right? A lot of times when you're working with your customers, it has to always be about governance. Maybe that's even your start of your pitch is we're going to be talking about AI, but the first thing I want you to know, we take governance extremely seriously. We take your IP and your information very seriously. If any company comes in here and says, it's part of the public domain, that's the first thing you say, thank you for your time, leave the door, because it shouldn't be public domain. It should be internal. So governance is really important. If we understand this and we can teach this and we can talk about this with our customers, right, we can then, I think, put us in a position to better sell the product or service that we're going to try to get to. Okay, so that's really what this, customers are looking for that unified solution that can marry, or that can meet those varying needs of not only their internal employees, but their customers, right? Think about this. So, and I also have kind of a quick roadmap at the end of this for you to basically put this in place and get something started very quickly. All right. With that being said, let's go ahead and, okay, perfect. So identifying high value Copilot scenarios. I wanted to just add this particular slide in here. So I thought when I looked at this and I kind of did some digging, this is one of those great sites that Microsoft every once in a while puts a really good one together. That's really awesome. A lot of times everything's broken, links to this, to that, to the other, but we put it in the chat window for you. But really kind of cool because what you can do is this is a scenario library, right? That I think is really good. Go ahead and click through those. Now this is going to be specific to your the actual workplace identity, right? HR, marketing, operations, IT, sales, finance. But now I'm going to start you with starting to think about things a little bit differently. If you've known me for 5 years or even 10 years since I've been in, with Microsoft and this, I always talk about this thing called business associations. Okay, so I think this is the silver bullet for anyone who's trying to develop an agent, right, or something to solve a problem, right? We start thinking about this. What I want you to do is after you go through this and you look at different scenarios, great. Now your second bit of research I'm going to have you do is I want you to look at your current client base. Okay, your current client base, and I want you to divide that into 3 different categories. Okay, number 1 category is the top industry that you service today. So if you have 50 clients, what is the top industry that you're typically servicing today? Okay, second thing is the second top industry. The third one is who cares about those? But those are the people that you're not doing a lot of business. Those are the randos. Don't worry about them. We're already going to discount them away. But the reason why I want you to do this is because your next step after you go ahead and categorize and you say, wow, I'm just looking at my account. We service a ton of manufacturers, or we service a ton of lawyers, or a ton of, we have a lot of small, general practice, doctors. Okay. Now, the reason why I'm saying this is because after you've identified your top 30%, okay, your top industry that you're naturally working in, maybe you didn't think about that or that's how you're going, but you just kind of naturally fit that. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to find the local business association inside of your area that applies to that. So there's going to be a manufacturers association of Philadelphia or of Pennsylvania, Philadelphia. There probably may even be one for Philadelphia, but there's going to be one for Pennsylvania. There's going to be one for New Jersey. There's going to be one for New York. There's going to be a law association or a bar association, right? For every state that's out there. There's the associations for everything. There's an association for your phones, your cell phones. There's the napkin association. The tumbler. You'd be surprised. There is an association for the straws for the tumbler. This is crazy stuff. But now, the reason why I'm asking you to do this, or the reason why I'm trying to tell you to do this, is because when you identify that business association, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to go to that website and you're going to start looking at the website and you're going to start being able to identify problems within that industry. There are going to be a lot of people talking about what they're trying to solve. What are they trying to do? What efficiencies, right? Okay. Now, if you're enterprising and instead of just doing the online jockey, I would join it because it's going to be a lot of benefits for you no matter what. It's probably $250 to $500. Just make sure one caveat that they have more than 250 members for that association, because then it makes sense. Now you're going to be talking to a lot of people. Okay. So after you've identified the association, you've joined the association, the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to call and you're going to ask for a meeting with the president of the association. Okay, now I'm going to have you just stop right there. Okay, you're going to hold that, put that down on a note. Okay, you're going to talk to the president of the association. And the first question, or maybe your first statement is, hey, thank you so much. I just joined, blah, 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 and this is what we do. However, Mr. or Mrs. President of the association, I've got some questions for you. What are the processes? What are the issues that are plaguing your industry that if somebody could make them better, quicker, faster, or automate them, would that be effective to your organization? Okay, that's your question. Okay, boom. Okay, this is going to help us immensely when we're trying to figure out how to build this. How do we make profit? How do we actually do this? What are we doing with agents, right? And how are we actually getting it done? So, okay, so pin that one. Okay, we got the notes on that one. I'm going to come back to that because we got to figure out how to build the offer. I'm going to get to that one. We're going to so pin that. Remind me if I draw a blank. I'm like, where are we in this one? Remind me that was where we pinned it. Okay, so this is a good slide. Let's go to the next one. Let's figure out, how do we customize your agent? So remember the whole idea when I started off this particular event with the chatbot? Okay. So, and what did I say? We had a knowledge base. Okay, and what is a knowledge base? And if you don't know it, no problem. It's fine. It's kind of what it is. The best way to describe it, and David, contradict me if I'm totally wrong here, but it's basically an Excel spreadsheet with questions and answers. That's how I think about a knowledge base. Now, that would be rudimentary at the very start, right, David? What else would you add to a knowledge base that would increase the viability of it?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, brass, bones, just bare level. Yeah, we could say an Excel spreadsheet, right? But nowadays, with connectors and access, we can use entire folder repositories. SharePoint's a great example that a lot of Microsoft focused customers and organizations are using. It's not an exhaustive list whatsoever.
Yeah. So you can just put just about anything inside of that knowledge base, and you can use a bunch of different ways of doing it. I mean, you can put it in SharePoint, but SharePoint has limitations, right? They have size limitations, right, David? So you got to be careful with that. And then where else can we put it? Well, you can spin up an Azure instance, and then now you're going to have unlimited space, but now it's going to cost you. So got to be a little careful. Okay, got to be a little careful. But one, we start with our knowledge base. Okay, that's where we're starting. That's the conceptual understanding of a knowledge base. And think of it like, okay, it's a small little aquarium. We've got a bunch of mini goldfish in this aquarium, and then we throw in our grouper. Our grouper is going to be going looking for those goldfish to eat up, right? That's basically what our agent is the grouper that's going there. And I know this sounds so rudimentary, and I'm sorry for some of you. You're like, come on, Sherm, get a little bit more complicated here. But I'm just trying to think of basic concepts. So knowledge first, perfect. Okay, actions. This is important. This is where you're going to start thinking about the tasks and processes that your agent can perform in those line of business services or applications. Okay, what can it do, right? So in our most rudimentary example, what it was doing, the Cortez bot or the agent was taking some of that knowledge. We put in the question, it'd be searching the knowledge base. It would find 2 or 3 answers. It would then present that to us. We would take that, and then we would be able to respond very quickly, right? So that was the task, the process. However, there's other processes such as billing for HR, not for HR, for the healthcare industry. Billing is a nightmare, right? Billing, oh my gosh, having to go to 5 or 6 or 7 or different 8, 9, 10 different portals. Why don't you create an agent that can go ahead and actually take that, create a form, submit the form, do everything for you? Boom. You are doing a great thing. Actually, I have a friend of mine who 3 years ago designed an app that did a billing aggregation app. It was only for the chiropractic industry. Yeah, and he sold it for $22 million. Yes, yeah. He was a one-man shop, and he was like, he hated it. He hated the billing industry. He actually ended up not being a doctor anymore because he hated it so much. But I think the 22 million helped. He didn't have to do any more chiropractic work anymore, right? So we got to figure out what are our actions, right? Okay, then next, it's what is the logic? What is the logic that's behind that? And that's where you're training your model. And I think where it's changed in using Copilot Studio or the Foundry, you're able to actually utilize the tools a lot better to make that streamline a whole lot quicker. Okay. Where I think in the past, when David and I were actually trying to train a model 4 years ago, oh my gosh. I mean, it's like you needed a PhD to figure out how to get all the connectors together, right? And how did it train and what were probabilities? What were the understanding of probabilities, the statistics based on ranking the different, words that were in each question. Kind of a pain in the ass, excuse my French, but it was. So now you're able to actually do that. And that's where the whole thing comes together. So customizing your agent after you have identified that particular industry and then the problem set, now, boom, now you can start using these as very simple building blocks. This is not that hard. And I think so many of us are thinking to ourselves, this is so hard. This is going to be so hard. There's no way I'm going to be able to do it. Team, I think you can get an agent up in less than a month without having to hire a developer. I think you could. David, maybe this is his way of saying, no, you can't.
No, I think you could do it in a day. I don't think this is a month thing. I don't think this is a 2 week thing. If you haven't yet, if you haven't toyed around in Copilot Studio before, you haven't played with a Copilot Power Platform, I would strongly encourage everybody today to go toy with those. A lot of the knowledge base that like Sherman's been talking about today, a lot of the knowledge is already baked in, right? It's built into the GPT models. The additional knowledge that you're providing is just what's specific to what you want that agent to do, right? The canvases are very low code. And if you get stuck in the canvas, guess what you can do? You can ask Copilot how to create that next step of logic, right? Sometimes it can iterate and do it right there in the canvas for you. Same thing in Foundry. I don't think, and this is just my opinion. I don't think it's an issue of time. I think it's an issue of willingness and effort and not being afraid to mess up once or twice. Be customer zero, right? Start internally. We'll talk about that more in a little bit. But all right, I'll get off my soapbox. It's back to you, Sherman.
Thank you. No, that was perfect. That was perfect. You could do it in a day. You don't have to be scared about it. We just have to understand, like, what is the problem? Like, what are we going to fix? What are we going to do that's going to help out? That's the genius with this. All right. So let's yeah. Oh, this is a good one. This is a word salad or word cloud or whatever. Let's put in here. If you guys can go to the poll and come out, what business problems are you trying to solve with AI agents? I think it'd be pretty cool. I'm going to put in one. Please go to the word cloud and go ahead and tap or submit a response to what kind of problems are you trying to solve with AI agents. I'd say there's billing. David, why don't you put in one? Analyzing data, sports bets. Ooh, I wonder if you could do that quicker, faster, better. You could be the draft king. I think that's David. He's putting in the sports bets one. Data evolution. Okay, cool. Analyzing data, request for information. That's really good. Summary production. Previous quarter trade analysis. Yeah, these are problems. These are problems in a billing, right? We know that one. Let's see, government reporting, service ticket centers. There we go. So that's great, and thank you everybody for putting some stuff in here. I do appreciate it. That kind of helps our thinking. All right, so let's go ahead and get to the next slide here. Deep reasoning in agents, right? This is where I think you need to go. You're going to dig a little bit deeper, right? We're going to building more of the idea of that modern data warehouse, right? We're bringing in, but we're actually digging deeper into it. Microsoft has a great tool set to be able to do that. And as you see in the actual slide, this is more of like a power platform. If then what happens if this goes to here, then it goes to there. If then whatnot. Really good idea to kind of understand that with that, so you can get much deeper. The agent, I think, is just a lot more surface. It's just a lot more surface area, but you can go 10 times deeper. Let's go to the next one. Okay, so this is what I want to kind of get into is building an agent, getting started offer. Okay, so the idea here that we want to talk about is figuring out a fixed price model, like a get started model, where they're going to be paying you X amount of dollars to go ahead and create this. And if you can do it in a day, you're going to, I think, understand what we're talking about as far as the pricing goes, right? So it kind of just starts out with testing, implementation, and user adoption, right? You want to test, publish, and drive the user adoption. You want to build and configure that agent to actually make it actually work, right? Scenario discovery and prioritization really is your next step. Identify key business use cases and prioritize the business and the business impact. Or then also look at technical and business assessment, right? Assessing the current technical capabilities and the business challenges. And then you can actually use Copilot Studio, Copilot agent consumption to kind of go ahead and get it started. And what we think is that maybe you want to provide that as a free, first 3 months for free. Okay, I know that's a little gobbledygook, but let's get into the next slide. It's actually going to be a little bit more specific, for that. So our idea, and this is kind of going off of what Microsoft is kind of talking about, is we're targeting, the first opportunity as basically a $6,500 price tag. Okay, so I think you look, and it could be plus or minus, up and down, right? But I think you started in two facets. One, you're going to do a fixed price agent getting started offer. Okay, where basically it's when you're talking to your customer, you're saying, look, we want to get started to building these out for you. However, there's a cost to do it, right? We're going to have to do some testing and implementation. We're going to have to build and configure. We're going to have to, create a scenario discovery and prioritization. And then we'll do a business and technical and business impact assessment, and then provide you a little bit of consumption with that. So we're looking at, probably, maybe about 8,000, right? For that, you can do 8,000, you can do 4,000, 3,000. It's up to you. But our idea is that that's usually a pretty good, under 10,000 is easy to get through for testing and POCs. Then on top of that, then you think about, okay, what is my monthly price for this agent? Okay, so in our scenario, monthly price $500 at a 50% margin, which gives you $2,500 in profit per month, right? You can then get the 15% partner earned credit, $250 in consumption, first 12 months, which equals $450. So with that being said, you're looking at a 50% profit margin. Your agent is pretty robust, and it's actually starting to move into it. Now, you can then put tiers on that based on the amount of consumption, because that's the where the money really starts to blend, or it starts to pile up, or not pile up, but starts to the cost increases significantly, is compute power and how many times that agent is being used, right? So if you're using it within, and Dave, correct me if I'm wrong on how I'm thinking about this, but if you're using it within a subset of 20 employees, your consumption is going to be a lot less, as opposed to giving it out to 1,000 people to use. Correct. Okay. All right. We have a question. We have a hand raised. Sunny Clark. Let me see if I can.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, there we go. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, perfect.
This is probably a dumb question, but I know you said there are no dumb questions. When I see the managed services at monthly price, are you saying that that's a Microsoft managed services, or the managed service provider would charge that?
No, that's what you're charging, the managed service provider.
Then what is the 15% partner earned credit? Where's that coming from?
So that partner earned credit, you're going to get that from Microsoft in the back end.
For selling which product?
For selling the actual Copilot and the agent.
Yeah. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So that increases your overall profitability just a tad bit, but it's there.
That's helpful. Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah, and at that $500 mark as well, that's actually pretty reasonable. But we also just got to be careful on this one. You're basing that based off of probably a smaller environment, okay? Where that agent is using to help maybe do billing for a certain department or something like that, right? Got to be careful. You can't say $500 a month and, hey, put this out to the public.
No, this is great. I appreciate it. I ran my business partner. I was like, hey, we should charge $1,500 a month and say we'll create up to X number of agents for them. Like I was working at, so you're helping me kind of bring something to fruition that I was already kind of thinking about. So this is very helpful. I appreciate it.
Great. That's what hopefully this whole damn bump is about, right? Solving some problems here. So thank you. That's awesome. Thanks for that feedback. Okay, so this is the idea here. Okay, so now before I move on to this, remember we had that the idea of business associations, and you talked to the president. You said, hey, what are the problems? This is what I want you to do now. Okay, the next step of that is you say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. President, we're developing an agent for your industry. Would you mind if we went ahead and developed this and had you test it for us and tell us what you think? Okay, because now you're giving a nice little, it's an investment, right? A little bit of an investment on your end. Have them test it. Then after they test it and they come back and they say, yeah, then you can say, hey, since you are the president of the business association, we'd also like to do a test with one of your organization's members. Who would you like to nominate? And we'll go ahead and give a POC, right? For that. We'd go ahead and give you a POC, right? A proof of concept. Now, what is the SLA? Excuse me, before I go, Paul, we're going to get, I may have to talk to you after, or get that to you after, but we'll address that here in a minute. So now, okay, back to the president of business association. Great. Now we have a POC with that particular business. Now, in my mind, I'm thinking there's two things. We're ingratiating ourselves with the business association. Number two, we've got our first potential client, but actually, I'm not even thinking that small. I'm actually thinking that, hey, if that first potential client pays me, fantastic. And I'm going to probably, pretty much expect them to pay me. But really what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get and create somebody who's influential within that business association to be a believer, and then my new advocate inside of that business association. Okay. Now, third thing to extrapolate is after you've completed step 1 and step 2, and you have this offer the way that we talked about it, very simple now. Now, all you do is market to those 250 businesses in that one business association. You have a target market. You know that you're solving problems. You now have the president of that association behind you, and you also have one of the top members who's using your stuff today, and you're solving his problems. Bing, bang, boom. There you go. That's it. That's all you got. You got it now. That's all you got. That's all you need. So I expect 22 people here today to come back on the next bump and say, Sherman, we're all in business associations. We've all created agents, and we're all making money left hand over fist. It's unbelievable. I don't know if I can attend any more VOMPs. I'm about to sell my app for $22 million. And then I'll say, hey, please don't come to another VOMP. If you sell it for $22 million, I'm going to have you as the next guest speaker. You have to be on the VOMP. Okay. All right, guys. Let's get over to Dave, and he's going to go over some case study stuff here to kind of help us conceptualize this a little bit cleaner, to keep just our juices flowing here. Dave?
Absolutely. All right. And Riva, if you don't mind popping out that poll, which Microsoft AI tools everybody is leveraging, that would be fantastic. There we go. Okay. The reason that we're asking this poll question is because you guys probably realized by now there's more than one place that you can go and create an AI solution. It's not just inside of Teams and Copilot. It's not just inside a Power Platform. It's not just the headier, when we're starting to talk about integrating things like Azure OpenAI. But just kind of curious about where everybody's at. And on that last poll question, to those who said they wanted to stick their heads in the sand, I would love to connect with all three of you individually. I really would, just because I'm curious about how you really feel around all of this this AI fun stuff. So, Riva, if you don't mind, let's go to the next slide here. And I see a lot of us are, or at least we've leveraged or we've explored Copilot Studio, which is a massive first step. I want to talk about just a few numbers here, and then what we're going to do is we're going to break into different examples of these tools being utilized across different organizations and what that exactly means. So if we just kind of barn burn these real quick, Finastra, their marketing team, with the help of Microsoft AI tools, cutting down their content creation time from 7 months to 7 weeks. Lumen, they connected Copilot to Salesforce and ServiceNow, Each employee saving them 10 hours a week. In turn, they're getting 40% more outbound calls done, and that's going to add 50 million in annual revenue to their bottom line projected, right? Honeywell, their employees are saving an average of an hour and a half every week. That look, those little bits add up, right? That's 74 hours per person every single year. At Oxford Hospital, with all the admin tasks, a lot of those being automated to some degree on the admin side of the house, it gives them more time to focus on what they really enjoy doing in the first place, which is spending time with the patients, right? Solving their issues. Amgen, they rolled out Copilot to 20,000 employees. They're using it to boost productivity kind of as a whole, but really focused on accelerating the drug development for rare diseases. And that list goes on and on. Let's go ahead and get a little more specific with the next slide here, Rita. Okay, Accenture. If we look at Accenture, you guys can take a look at some of the numbers here. That's not what the big takeaway is. The big key is that they leveraged Azure AI Foundry. If you've not leveraged Foundry before, Foundry brings structure to building and deploying AI use cases, which is needed when we're talking about large organizations and you're trying to implement and deploy multiple AI use cases across the board, right? Foundry has standards, governance, reusable assets, you've got production pipelines, you've got integrations. All of that allowed them to move beyond some of the beginning pieces that a lot, or the beginning stages that a lot of us are in, a lot of our customers are in, which is kind of like, isolated pilots. And instead they've been able to adopt Gen AI at scale. This isn't how most customers are going to start. Small pilots are still going to be your entry. But of course, this is always going to be the end goal. How do we get to a point where we're using a service that we can rinse, wash, repeat, and continue to add to our productivity? Sherman, any numbers stand out to you though about this case?
Well, I kind of look at it, 50% reduction in time to build AI applications. I think that's important to understand. Accenture has a lot of people there, right? So I think reducing that and trying to get stuff in would be great. Yeah, we're gonna move on to the next one.
Yeah, let's go to the next one. All right, so Ernst and Young. This is probably one of my favorite examples of an organization using Power Platform Copilot. They were spending a ton of time on manual financial processes. Training somebody on that alone, you can see that it took 2 weeks. Once they went ahead and dug into Power Platform Copilot, all the employees had to do was describe, hey, this is the process that I'm currently using to accomplish this task. What steps do we need to integrate into this canvas? And what steps can you take for me? Right? A little bit of back and forth, a little bit of tweaking, because you, of course, are going to have to provide the connectors to authenticate to whatever applications this process is going to be utilizing. With a couple of little touches, they were able to finish that out, and the result was a 50% increase in cleared payments, 230,000 hours saved, right? What this example tells us is we don't have to be AI wizards or AI magicians to provide solutions to our customers, right? Which we should really focus on is what parts of our customers' business are eating up most of their time. Take a look at the different solutions available to us and start building. Sometimes it's small, right? Sometimes it could be just like this. Sometimes small solutions provide large savings. If you have not toyed around with Power Platform Copilot yet, man, oh man, so simple. Describe what you're doing, it'll build out the logic for you, and then you can tweak it from there. This is my number one recommendation. I just talked to a partner earlier about this today who said, we've toyed around with the thought of, AI and co-pilots and just AI as a whole. I said, be customer zero, right? Everybody should be customer zero. Look internally, find that process, go to Power Platform Copilot, see if you can't save yourself 30 minutes to an hour a day. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one, Rita. Okay, cyber security. Now I know pretty much everybody in the room here, you have your preferred security solution because everybody and their grandmother does. Okay. But today we're talking about Microsoft AI tools. Now, when you're in some of the different command centers for some of the different Microsoft products around security, you've got raw logs, telemetry, unstructured data, false positives. What Security Copilot does is it helps you cut through the noise. You can convert all of that obscure information into through natural language, through just throwing out a prompt, and get some remediation and recommendations, and not just in the form of a chat, right? You're able to get solutions like scripts, queries, and so much more. It's a co-analyst by your side. You can see that a 20% reduction in average time to detect and respond. And if you're talking about an hour, right? What does that mean? 12 minutes? That could be the difference between somebody encrypting all of your data and not, right? So this is another fun example. Reva, we can go ahead and move on to the next one here. Okay. If you take a look at the approach for Accuvate, this is a little bit more advanced, right? This is a little bit more complicated because we're stringing together multiple services to do one thing. Now, when I say one thing, it's more of like multiple things that an individual would do in order to help a customer, right? So if we're looking at somebody calls in, they're trying to book a cruise, hey, what's available? What are the prices? So on and so forth. They leverage Copilot Studio, Dynamics, and Azure OpenAI. With Studio, that lets you design those custom copilots that Sherman was talking about earlier. And because there's already pre-built connections into applications like Dynamics, so your customer data, in this example, bookings, and support workflows, those all flow seamlessly into the assistant kind of process, the agent process. And because you can also integrate it with Azure OpenAI, the Copilot can understand and respond in natural language and turn all of those customer questions into actions that it's taking and iterating on. All together, when you pull this, you have a digital concierge that's both conversational and actionable, and it's connected to all of your actual business systems. Any numbers stand out here for you, Sherman?
No, those are good. I'm going to let you roll through those just for the sake of time, and we'll.
Gotcha. I've got one more, and then I'll quit eating up all of your time.
No, you're doing great. I think I ate up my own time earlier. So
the last one that we're going to take a look at is Forrester. Now this is more of like a holistic overview, okay? Because what Forrester does a lot of is studies and surveys, and they provide data, right? So their research shows that partners are using AI agents to unlock different levels of new revenue growth, especially around modern work as a whole. The real driver for success as far as AI is concerned is building custom AI agents with Studio, weaving some generative AI into legacy systems without the need for a complete overhaul and costly lift and shifts and replacements, and pairing that with advisory services, kind of like Sherman was talking about earlier as well, that can guide customers on where AI can deliver them the most value and how they can adopt it responsibly. Every organization today, I say this and I scream it from the rooftop, every organization today have employees that are using AI, whether their organization enables them to use AI or not, right? Meaning personal company data is constantly flowing out into the open world, and every organization that waits longer and longer is not benefiting from that, right? So, with that being said, I'll get off my soapbox. Back to you, Sherman.
No, that was great. And Dave, actually, Riva, can we go back to the slide that talked about, or maybe was that the poll that had all of the different options, AI options with Microsoft? I think it's Copilot Studio, Azure, OpenAI, Power Platform, Skynet. Do we have a slide on that listed that? I think it's before the case studies. Maybe not. Let me ask you this, David. We had the poll, right? It says what tools are you leveraging? There we go. Copilot, Azure OpenAI, Power Platform Copilot. I'm waiting for Skynet to take over, right? Which actually, did you know that Microsoft is actually Skynet? A lot of people don't know that, but they actually are. They renamed it because they didn't want the Terminator thing. Anyways, what would you start with, bro? What would you start with? What would be a good starting thing?
Copilot Studio for sure. Copilot Studio for sure. Actually, directly within the Teams UI, right?
Okay.
So if you've got Teams and you've got Copilot, go to Copilot. On the right hand side, it says create an agent. Go and click into that. The interface is super intuitive. It's not intimidating, and you can start small, right, with just some base parameters. And then afterwards, after it's been built, you can even go back in and refine it further and add actions to it. You don't have to do it prior. It's very customizable. And then I'd say from there, go Power Platform Copilot, and then Azure OpenAI. And then we probably should have included Foundry as well, but those two last.
Okay. Now, David is actually an expert at this. He's been teaching large language models for the past 2 years to Microsoft executives. A lot of you guys don't know this, but we're actually a support ship for Microsoft. We actually teach all of the Azure immersion workshops for Microsoft worldwide, and we teach this thing called Tech Excel. We actually teach Microsoft technologists how to use their own technology. So we teach them on building, large language models and AI and whatnot. So David is well versed in this. And he's also well-versed in a new lab that's coming out. What is the title of that lab, the agent lab? Do you remember the title of that one?
It's Copilot agents. Yeah, it's just around. It's going to be 4 different Copilot agents, 4 different verticals that we kind of build or individualized. Very neat.
Yeah. And if there is any interest in that, reach out to us if you want to get on one of those lab days. We're going to be able to start doing this. Probably going to offer those maybe 1 a month or something. I don't know exactly yet, but if you're interested in it, just say yes or no, and we'll contact you and we'll get you in on that. Pretty cool lab. It's about 3 hours, 3.5 hours. It's high level. Okay. It's intense. But we make sure that everyone lands the plane. So no matter what level you are, we'll bring you by the ear and get you in. We'll get you to land the plane. So cool. Sounds great. All right. So let's just kind of wrap this up here. My last 3 slides, really, I'm just going to buzz through the last 2. They're just going to be for you. But there's some out of the box agents that I think are pretty cool. That are already kind of pre-built. Actually, how David was talking about the analyst, the facilitator, the interpreter, the project manager. Let's go to the next slide. The employee self-service, right? The skills agents, SharePoint agents. A lot of these stuffs are kind of pre-built. Awesome. Sweet. Right? Cool. So do that. But what I want to do is get to the summary, because the whole idea about this whole coming to this bump is how do we think profitably? How do we turn this into profit? How do we actually make any money out of it? Right? So these are the steps in my mind, okay, that I think you need to take, right? Think about the problem that can be solved by automation and or a chat interface. Right. Number 2, contact the business association in your area that you can verify the problem you've identified and validate your intent. Use Microsoft Copilot Studio to create or use an out-of-the-box solution available to your industry. Test that application with your business association by doing a POC for free. Go ahead and eat a couple grand. Just think about this. Don't trip over pennies to make millions. Okay. Invest in what you're trying to do, right? Because you're ingratiating yourself. You're working with them. Because imagine this, if you do it for free for one person and figure all out the problems, and now you have a list of 250 members of that association, holy Moses, 250 to 1 ratio there. Okay. We got to build it once. And then, man, that's the beauty of software as a service. Create a low-end offer for easy instant adoption. Okay, that's important. You want to get them in. You want to get them started, right? Add to your application of available an AI model. And lastly, expand your offer to all business association members. Okay, so just want to say that is where I'm going to leave you with today. You want to say, we're going to wrap this up here. Thank you guys for coming. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for coming today. Really do appreciate it. Our next session next month, okay, is going to be Find Hidden Earnings in Partner Center. I don't know if you guys know this, but I mean, what we really specialize in is doing audits for Partner Center, and we find about 20% breakage on every single one that we do. It's unbelievable. There's so much money that's being misreported that is just not there. We found, oh my gosh, we get this. We found for a very big partner of ours, we found a client, okay, that they had not done business with in 3 years that equated to $15 million in ACR reporting against their number, right? So they were never going to get the SPD. They were never going to get an advanced specialization, because how do you make up for a $15 million problem? They had been trying to solve it for a year and a half. We told them, hey, give us 48 hours. 48 hours, we knew who to call. We used a silver bullet. We said, hey, look, why is this an error in your reporting? This is ridiculous. Take it off. They took it off. Next thing you know, a week later, because everything takes a while to matriculate, boom, all their SPDs lit up. Their advanced specialization stuff lit up. It was great. So we're going to be talking about that at the next month. Hidden earnings, pitfalls, little things. Please come to it. If you know any other partners that would like to attend, please send it out. Send out their registration link. We really appreciate it. Last being said, thanks everybody for joining today. Really do appreciate it. We're going to give you back 1 minute. Okay. If you want to contact us, here you go. 1 minute to your day. And if you want to contact us, go ahead and use those emails there. Anyways, thanks everybody. Have a great afternoon. We'll talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.